Now entering Terahertz Gap. Caution is advised. Anomaly title. Blue Whale. Warnings. Graphic description of death, suicide, some violence, mild racism, and homophobia. Please enjoy your stay.
Statement of Hank N. Gerbler on his breaching of continuance. Statement begins.
Now, see here, mister. I can see the look in your eye, and I can see that you're not a fan of me. Don't try to hide it with platitudes. I know you'd be lying. Yes, sir, I'm a traditional man, and by that I don't like when folks that should stay separate get it in their heads that it's fine and dandy to mingle. On occasion, sure, but why make a whole fuss out of it? We stepped our separate ways anywho. Why, I once had this black woman, sweet as pie, tell me as she was driving, but she talks different with slang and riz when she's driving with other black folk. Now ain't that strange? Regardless, you're not here to listen to me preach about my thoughts. I'm not a bad person. I just believe in my rights of free speech. I know you think I'm a horrible person. Don't try to prove me otherwise, sir. You're exactly the kind of guy I'd target for my, well, fun. And that's just that. Fun. I don't make anyone do nothing. They all do it themselves. I help things along just by talking. These folk, well, they're low, you know? I don't do anything. I talk to people. I learn about them. And I get them to hang themselves. Okay? You don't seem surprised or angry. That makes me a bit surprised. Maybe a bit angry. I suppose you want to know how I got this quirky little hobby. It started when I was in high school. Must have been in I don't know, junior year? Maybe junior year of college. I don't remember. Does it matter? Nah. Anyway, there was this girly white. Yeah, it's not what you're thinking. Nothing happened to her. No accusations flying or cross-dating. Just some girly. I didn't like her. A few of my friends did. I didn't like him either. I thought to myself, what would be fun? I didn't like him. And, well, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to mess with the guys and make the girlie have a bit of a meltdown? It was a boring semester. I had time on my hands. I left a couple of notes, all kitty-like, in my pals' lockers, one at a time, carefully. Of course, when good old Sam started bragging that the girlie asked him out, well, it caused a scuffle, since Richie also said the doe asked to go out with him. It was a big blowout, and they ended up fighting pretty bad. Eventually, Rich managed to rip that note out of Sam's hand and compared them to. He was crushed. It was great to watch. Seeing a man's soul shrivel up like that. Golden. Doesn't get much better than that. Well, that's not true, son. Actually gets much better than that. Tim, quiet guy, and the guy like the least of our friend group, also got a note. I watched him, saw his face go red and puce and then pale as he saw the fight go on. At the end of it, Tim left pretty quick. I slinked after him. Can't really let him go too far without supervision. He was staring at the girlie. He wanted to go up there and say something. I could see that well enough. Probably felt like a fool. Either for falling for the idea that the girlie left him a note, or that she wanted to go out with the three of them. Jack didn't show up yet. He got one too. But he was a show-off honors student, so he wasn't with us just yet. I planned for Jack's goody two-shoes reputation to be in shambles at the end of this. Tim, though, he was a fragile guy, a bit of a wuss. He made me want to wrap my hands around his throat every now and then. But that's not my way. They do it all themselves. Now, Tim was looking at the girl, eyes shining, swallowing hard. He turned to me with those pitiful bright eyes. "Hank," he said, all hesitant, and then he asked me, "You don't really think Hannah left us all these notes, do you?" I shrugged. I showed him a note of my own. His face fell even more. He looked over at the girl and walked off. I followed after him, playing the concerned friend. I told him that Hannah didn't matter, that he could go over to her and ask her what the deal was, if she really left those notes. Tim nodded, but he didn't really seem all that enthused. And then Jack came in. Jack's note was a little bit different. Jack's note included some cash. I don't know how much I put. Maybe it was a 50, maybe a Benjamin. Either way, Jack came swaggering out of the school, made a beeline for the girlie. I could feel Tim clamming up next to me, stiff and almost vibrating from the strain. Clearly, he wanted to go over and ask Jack if he got a note too, and if he was confronting the girlie on it instead of coming over to us and bragging. I told Tim all quiet to wait, that something seemed wrong. Jack asked the girlie something. It made her laugh, made me smile, especially the way that Tim stiffened even more next to me, shaking hard and looking like he wanted to strangle Jack. Sam, sporting a black eye, came over just as the girlie got into the passenger seat of Jack's car, a gift he got from Daddy for his good grades and behavior, and just the cash that Jack's daddy had lying around. He looked pained, maybe half from getting his own handed to him on a plate, and half from seeing the girlie going off with Jack. I suggested to the guys that we go watch a movie to cool off, brush off the tensions. They were all wary of each other, circling like wolves and snapping like gators. So while they obviously wanted to, it was tough to agree. It took a while. Sam almost got another black eye, but they did eventually choose to watch the movie I picked out. Talked everyone into it. They didn't know that I gave Jack and the girl tickets to the same movie we ended up going to watch. I don't remember what movie it was exactly, only that it was one of those Predator films. Could have been a rerun, could have been a first showing. I don't remember, and I don't frankly care. I only remember the satisfaction I got out of it, feeling the pulse of my blood a steady thrum through my veins. I had my eyes closed through most of the movie, just listening to it play out. Maybe you think I was excited by the prospect of messing with my friends, but I wasn't. I was feeling cool and relaxed, though it was really a lot of fun. It was great to know that with a couple of words, they'd be at each other's throats. Rich was the one who spotted Jack and Hannah sitting a few rows ahead of us. I knew they were there. I said nothing when Sam swore all soft. And then when Jack got up to buy a drink for himself and the girlie, Tim tried to get up too. I stopped him, just quietly said his name, and Tim sat down. I knew then that I had him hook and sinker. It was gonna be great. We waited till Jack and the girl left before us, and Rich suggested that we just stay in the theater and watch whatever the next movie was gonna be. But Tim was feeling real bummed out, so that idea got tossed in the trash. Worked well enough with me. Sam had to go home anyway. Richie decided that he was going to take a bus to some diner, and he left too. I asked Tim how he was feeling. He said he wasn't feeling so great, and I said, "Well, that's too bad." Then he started talking about how much he liked Hannah. I listened, He said he liked her hair and her smile, and that he wanted to hurt Jack real bad for taking her away from him. I asked why he didn't hurt him, and he said, well, Jack's a friend, and hadn't seemed happy. I didn't press the subject further. Tim was the one who talked more. Tim talked with me every day since then. I couldn't wait for his damn throat to close up. Every time he talked with me, he sounded angrier and angrier at Jack. Well, that was my doing. I'd tell him about how Jack and Hannah were doing, the details and ups and downs of their budding relationship, and Tim never thought twice to actually ask Jack what's up. He kept getting darker thoughts, too, asking me if I thought he was hopeless, if he should just give up. The girl he liked was with one of his friends, and his friends were treating him like an outsider. That was on me, too, because while I was helping Tim down a spiral, I was telling Richie and Sam about Jack and Tim, going on about how I was worried about them, that the girl was wrong for Jack, and that Tim couldn't stand either of them. Now and then, I'd tell them and Jack that Tim was starting to seem dangerous to me, that I'd been spending a lot of time with him, and what he'd been saying wasn't pleasant. And Jack, man, he fell head over heels for that girl, even though before I left him a note in his locker, they'd never even exchanged more than hellos and goodbyes. It was great to watch, great to see that group of boys slowly deteriorated into a gaggle of trust issue-infused paranoids. Flow out with Jack and Tim having at Jack's house. You see, I persuaded Tim that he had enough of Jack. In a way, all I did was agree with some of his angrier, darker thoughts. And he went down that road himself. It was easy, man. I didn't do anything. Tim did it himself. Except he flubbed up. Big time. Hannah wasn't with Jack that day. It was Sam and Richie. I was invited too, but notably, Tim wasn't. I accidentally let it slip that we were gonna hang out, plan a little fishing trip in Jack's boat. Tim got pissed. Real quiet. Real mad. I asked him if he was sure that he was fine, and he was all, yeah, sure. But I could tell he wasn't. I stayed back, planning on coming in late. And when I did get to Jack's house, boy, howdy was it a mess. There were broken plates all over. Boys haven't gotten into a big fight. Tim was there, screaming himself hoarse about the girl, Jack, and the boys, basically ditching him. He had a broken plate in his hand, flecks of blood dripping down between his fingers. His face was red hot with anger, spittle flying like rabid dogs as he jeered and taunted. Richie had a cut down his face, and Sam was trying real hard to placate Tim. Poor Sam. If he wouldn't have said anything on the day it all started, well, then maybe Tim wouldn't have slit his throat, stabbed the poor bastard right in the neck. Sam, being an idiot, tore the glass right out, staring at it. A horrible gurgling noise came out. All the guys screaming, Rich running and calling for an ambulance. But it was too late. Tim was just staring at Jack and Sam. Jack leaning over his buddy and trying to figure out something he could do to help. But it was too late. Sam's throat was clogged up with blood, and it dripped out of the gash. Tim slipped away while Richie came back with a towel, wrapping it around that gaping wound. We watched as the light of his eyes faded, and at the last minute, he turned to me. He must have picked up on something slight, because his eyes went a little wider, spark of realizing something, and he pointed at me for a sec anger in his faded gaze before seizing up and succumbing to the beyond. The others were too busy panicking to notice it. Tim was arrested that day. I came to visit him in jail. I was the only one. He'd drawn away from his family in the recent months, and maybe that was my doing. Hey, I've got a heart. I'd visit a friend in a low spot. Could always help him up. Tim was, well, real down. After killing his buddy, I guess it hit him that he was on a dead end. He told me he couldn't take it anymore, and I said that I forgave him. I leaned against the bar's doorway once. Tim's eyes were on my hands, and I adjusted my collar as he watched. I doubt that he even knew the kind of signals that I was sending his way. He looked at me, and with those same bright, watering eyes, he just nodded the same as he did all those months ago. Next morning, he was dead. Hung himself right there in the county jail. They're supposed to be suicide-proof, but I gotta tell you, it ain't hard to find a loophole. That's what you're trying to do, isn't it? Isn't it? Go to hell. Whatever. He did what I suggested. Slipped his bedsheets between the upper bars and made a noose out of them. Rich was all torn up about it. He liked Sam. He told me at the fellow's funeral. That was what made him so upset about the girlie supposedly asking him out, was because he wanted to go out with Sam himself. Now, I don't have any problem with you queer folk. I'm assuming you're one of them, but I think it's just a little weird, like painting a picture with all same colors. Either way, Richie was devastated. He lost two of his best friends in the same week, and one of them happened to be a crush of his. Jack and Hannah tried their best with him, and went on with hoping to go along with the fishing trip. Again, me and Richie. I declined, though, claiming that I had some other thing to do that day. You see, a few days prior to the whole Tim killing Sam incident, Jack asked me to remind him that his boat had a few planks that needed replacing. Naturally, with the whole bloody mess, I forgot. I knew those patches were in bad shape. I went to check them out a couple days before the little fishing adventure. It would definitely pose a problem to those bog goers, and I wanted no part of it. No direct part, anyways. So the three of them went out, and two of them came back, cold and wet and dead-eyed, like fish out of water themselves. Anna was tucked under Jack's arm as they sat on the shore and waited for the water rescue team to show up. It would be too late. I arrived about 10 minutes before them, and I had already been casually making my way there the whole time they had been on, or in, the water. When I reached the couple, Jack said all hollow, "Richie drowned." I asked what happened, and Jack told me that the boat nearly snapped in half. He blamed himself, said he should have remembered the bad planks. I apologized for forgetting to tell him, mentioning that it was a messed up day, and I trailed off all slow. Jack crumpled to tears, gripping my shirt and dragging me down to his level as he cried. The girlie wrapped her arms around him and tried to console him, but he seemed to be in a world all his own. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I could see the genuine pain lace through her irises. Maybe she was about to thank me for being there for Jack. Then her pupils contracted as she saw something else. I smiled at her, daring her to say something. An angry breath of air streamed through her nostrils, and the siren's crescent wail ceased just as the ambulance and rescue team came up to us. They carted Jack away for shock. I sat on the shoreline, watching as they dredged for Richie's body. They never found it. There was gossip among the kids that he was still out there, a spooky story that got passed around in the dark night. Jack was hospitalized for a long while. Hannah was with him every day, holding his hand and trying her best to guide him away from that dark path in which I encased him, a looping, horrible spiral of thoughts. It was obvious that she was failing at that, and it was obvious that she blamed me for some reason or another. Maybe she saw the same thing that Sam did in his last moments on this earth. Every time I came to visit Jack, she refused to leave me alone with him, watching quietly. I didn't mind. I knew that they were both stuck forever in that dreamscape, echoes of their humanity. Jack especially was hollow, empty, and the girlie? She turned to anger. She turned to anger enough to embrace murder. It was pretty early, I think 6 in the morning, when she knocked on my door. I invited her in. Didn't have a single reason not to. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. We both just sat at my table, looking at each other. Then she asked why I did this to poor Jack, and I laughed. I told her that without me, it wouldn't be her Jack. That I left him that note and the movie tickets on a bet that he wouldn't ask her out. The girlie stared at me as it all clicked. With the rage of a woman whose love was doomed, she pounced on me like a cat that hadn't been fed in a week, all claws and hissing and spitting. I made no move to defend myself, finding that being murdered wasn't so much a problem for me as I thought it might have been. She grabbed my tie, pulling on it hard, trying to strangle me with it. I could feel my airways sealing up tight. It started getting dark, but I didn't hurt that girl, not even to defend myself. I thought about Sam, how he must have felt to have his pipe sliced open how it was, trying to gasp for air that couldn't come. About Tim, who forced himself down a noose of his own making, and Richie, who drowned in that boggy mire. I decided then and there that if I deserved to die by hanging, I wasn't going to. Yes, sir, that's what I did. I chose not to die. There's that saying, where there's a will, there's a way, and I willed myself not to be strangled. Give me your hand. No. Oh, okay. Well, take that pen you're holding. Weave it by my throat, like a knife and I'm a hog. See? Goes right through. Nothing but my own self can touch my neck. I ain't even choked on food since that day. I won't drown, and I won't be hung. Simple as that. Anyway, I know. Back to my little story. Hannah screamed loud and hard as my tie snapped tight right through my neck. I got up all calm, looked at the last bruise that would ever be on my throat as I called the cops. In some sort of stupefied horror, Hannah made no move to go nowhere. She just stared at me, kept staring as the cops took her away. I pressed charges for attempted murder. Jack, a broken man, took one too many of the pills the nurses left him, had what the doctors called pulmonary aspiration, meaning that he choked to death on his own vomit. Hannah pleaded guilty. She asked the jury to hang her, plain and simple, but they refused, pretty uncomfortable. I visited her after the funeral, which was the day after her trial, and handed her a noose. She thanked me.
Testimony ends. Loophole identified. Mr. Gerbler's body is exempt from his next metaphysicality. Therefore, he may be hanged on his own intestines. The control room has approved testing.
Terahertz Gap is written by and presented by Control Room. Video editing has been provided by SRG.